Well, hello everybody. This is Don with Wizard Tower Games. Welcome to my Tuesday night live stream. Um, Tonight we're going to be talking about inclusiveness in the 80s. Was gaming really inclusive in the 80s? Um, were women and minorities really welcome at gaming tables, etc. during the 80s? And I'm going to dispel, I think I'm going to end up dispelling a few myths about this. Now, reason why I'm talking about it is because in a lot of groups that you go ahead that I'm a member of, I see many times people talking about, and when I was heavily on Twitter, I saw this a lot, was that people have the opinion, and usually it's people who are younger who didn't live through the late 70s and 80s like I did, and what they do is they tend to think that gaming was a white male dominated type activity for Dungeons and Dragons, and white, and I'm going to use a famous term, white cis males um, were not inclusive in our thinking back then. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And also in tonight's live, for those who are interested, I'll be giving away a copy of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dragonlance Adventures. This is a nice manual, nice and clean. Um, so I'll be giving this away tonight, a Dragonlance Adventures manual during the video here. So stay tuned, and I'll get into that. So gaming in the 80s, was it really inclusive? Were women and minorities really welcome at gaming tables? Now, I went on Twitter today and I dug through Twitter and I did some searches, and I seen several people tweeting about how gaming in the 80s was not an inclusive habit, that women and minorities were not welcome at the table, that women and minorities were a very rare thing. So I started doing some digging, and because I know how it was when I was younger. Um, we had minorities at our table. We had, albeit it was one girl, but we had a woman or girl at our table. Um, so I started doing some digging around, trying to find, is there any visual proof for my argument that we were very inclusive? And I found some really interesting imagery that I'm going to show you in a minute. And, as somebody, sorry, that's my dog in the background. Um, for those of you who grew up in the late 70s and into the early to mid 80s and who played D&D, I don't know what your experience was at your gaming table with women and minorities, but at mine, we had them. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine, his nickname, he was a Mexican kid. His nickname was Taco. And for those of you who think that's kind of like a bad thing, no, he wanted to be called Taco. That was his nickname in school, because we all had nicknames in school. And we had one female, but um, I did some digging around because I wanted to kind of see if there's any photographic evidence for my argument. Because a long time ago, there was a person who posted on Twitter, and they pretty much were calling anybody who was white, male, and who gamed in those eras racist and bigots and anti-woman, and and minorities were barred from tables and all that. And I don't remember it that way. So I started doing some digging, and I want to show you an image that struck me. I decided to dig for Dungeons and Dragons clubs in the 80s. And I actually saw a post in one of the AD&D groups where a gentleman shared some of these imageries. So I went ahead and I grabbed them up. And I want to show you one of them because this is really telling of what I remember D&D to be in the late 70s to early to mid 80s. And that is this picture right here. This is a Dungeons and Dragons club at a high school. As you can see, there are definitely women in the club. I count right about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, possibly 7. This person right here, I believe that's a woman. Hard telling. Looks like she has her hand over his shoulder. But back in the late 70s, early 80s, long hair was in vogue. So really hard telling if that was really really a woman or not. But for those who are watching the video right now, what was your experience when you were playing D&D when you were younger? Did you have women or minorities at your table? Um, How you doing, RPG Grandma? That's fine. You driving home, are you? If you're driving, be safe, okay? Um, the thing with me is I'm a little defensive about it because I think it's unfair when people who did not live in the area go ahead and judge something that they don't know about. That, what they're doing is they're taking their biases and they're taking just, their brand of discrimination. They're trying to apply it, I believe, on the past. You know, I talked to, I had a Zoom call last night, really late. I helped Cindy out, a lady named Cindy Robertson. She's a trans female, and Cindy was having some problem with Zoom, and I ended up helping her with it. And we had a really long discussion, and we kind of got into this whole thing of inclusiveness, and we got into all of this. And she's a really cool gal. She's a friend of mine, good gamer. I suggest you sit there and you'll see her posting all over the AD&D groups. RPG Grandma says, yes, we had women minorities in the RPGs we played. Yes. And so we were talking about that a little bit last night. And, what's really interesting here to me about all of this is, when I go back to this image, and I'm going to go to a couple other ones, like the next one I want to show you is this one right here. Oops. Well, we'll just go to this one real quick. That's a Dungeons and Dragons club. It's an image from a yearbook. And, you can definitely see, I see at least a couple minorities in there. And judging by the manuals, if you look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Player's Handbook, you can definitely tell that these, and the Dungeon Master's screen, these are really vintage images from the late 70s, probably 80, 81 maybe, possibly 82. And, this is what I remember D&D to be when I was younger. This is what I remember it to be. RPG Grandma says, I almost always played with other girls too, so I was not the only mythical creature. Yeah. And she had a Japanese DM once. Yes. And so let me go back to one more. So like, here's another image. What's interesting about this one, let me get the names out of there, is, again, we got women. Looks like we got a young Hispanic kid in there. And yes, we wore sunglasses back then, even indoors, and that's the style. So, and then here's another picture, again, women and minorities. And I believe I have another one, another D&D club. And again, right there, women and minorities. And, I think what a lot of people do is I think a lot of people discredit and they really short-sighted when it comes to thinking about how Dungeons and Dragons used to be. Excuse me. Jeez. A bot. Imagine that. The thing is Dungeons and Dragons has always been about friends getting together and people sitting at a table. And I think the sad part about D&D these days is because social media has allowed something to happen that I think is toxic to the gaming community. As great as social media is, as all the wonderful people I've met, it has sadly allowed a core element to infect our hobby. And it's individuals who want to bring politics and social politics into gaming. And I don't care what side of the political spectrum you lean to. I don't care if you're hardcore Republican, hardcore Democrat. I don't care if you're a flaming liberal or a staunch conservative. I don't care. Just don't be a jerk, and you'd be welcome at my table. For those of you that are on my personal friends list, you notice I stay away from politics, even on my personal page. Why? Because by and large, I don't care. Because I'm a smart enough guy to know that it doesn't matter what your politics are. Terry R says, good evening. Yes, we had minorities and women in gaming groups back in the 80s and 90s. Yes. RPG Grandma says, my current group has several Native American tribes represented. Diana says, my parents were gamers in the 80s. People of multiple faiths, ethnicities gamed then with them, etc. Exactly. And Diana makes a really interesting point here. I played a lot of D&D, okay, when I was a teenager. A lot of D&D. And I mean, I played... probably accurately every single weekend from Friday through Saturday, easily, rarely missing a weekend. And I never once had a discussion about religion at a table. Never had a discussion about politics. Never had, I mean, I had friends whose parents were very liberal, and I had friends whose parents were very conservative, and you knew it, but it was never anything that even the parents brought up. They never said, Donald, what political party does your mom and dad, lean to? Nothing like that. And Thias also says, my experience in the late 90s, early 2Ks, well before the current woke saviors. The thing is, I think that, again, like I was talking earlier, we have a core element in gaming that I call it infects the hobby. It's because they want to inject politics into gaming. And I think it's kind of like a negative feeding a negative, in the sense that what ends up happening is you have people that let their biases show. They don't want somebody who's gay or somebody who's trans, or maybe they don't believe women belong in gaming. That's not a 80s thing. That's their thinking today. And I noticed that there's not an age range here. It's not like, when you look at most of the online people who are bigoted, the majority of them are 50 and older. It's a real variety, and Twitter's a real good microcosm for that. Thias also says, we had Native Americans, girls, Mexicans, etc. The only thing that was keeping it from being more diverse was mainly where either myself or my parents happened to live. But everyone was always welcome. And that's a really good point, because that's true. Because, based on where you grew up, you might have a high Hispanic population. You might have a high Asian population. You might have a high black or a high white population. It doesn't make the game table a bunch of racists because of what they just have to draw from. The pictures I just showed you were from high school yearbooks. These are high schools in the late 70s, early 80s that allowed D&D clubs to have happen. So high schools are a real good microcosm, as we all know, of different races and beliefs and all of that. But again, social media has made it so easy for us to sit there and reach out to people. Back when I was a teenager, I'll say back when I was, 13, if I wanted to talk to my friend on a Saturday morning, like my friend Lance McGraw was his name, or Mark Bosquet, those are two of my good friends when I was 13 years old. Lance's mom had a rule. The phone was off Saturday morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if I picked up the phone and I called Lance's house and Lance wasn't home, I had to ride my bike over to Lance's house, knock on his door. Now you got the convenience. You can pick up the phone and you can video chat with your friend if you want. Go on Facebook, drop a PM, check their TikTok out. RPG Grandma says, it's upsetting to them, by the way, white middle class, liberal virtuous signers keeping recasting orcs as minorities gloss, aka orcs are full in the blank. Asian, black, and last I looked, Native American. Well, that's the thing is, RPG Grandma, I believe in this, is, D&D is about your imagination. Like, I will tell you right now, my kobolds are long snouted. Okay? My orcs have pig noses and tusks. Males have tusks, females do not. That's how you can tell a male orc versus a female orc in my games. That's my vision. Because when I was younger, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual, the kobold was almost like a dog snouted, and the orc had a pig nose. And I remember reading things like Tolkien and such. The Conan books I read a lot of. And then in the early 80s, the Belgariad series by David Eddings I really got into heavily. RPG Grandma says they think the activists are racist as heck for having a made-up monster, real people and racial groups. Well, the thing is, I think what has happened, and I noticed this, like Darlene the artist made a post the other day. She said that a friend, and this is so sad, she said a friend of hers pointed out that the term black magician would be problematic. Now, when you use it, and I'll talk about that for a moment, the class, the black magician. Like in the role-playing game I'm making, we have a thing called dark magic. Why am I calling it dark magic? Is it due to African Americans are, I believe, native or innately bad or evil, and I'm kind of co-associating it? No, it's because throughout time and throughout history, Darkness represented bad, evil. Light was the good, not white, light, you know, dark, not black, dark, and the thing is so, dark magic is, mysterious and a little bad. It has you know, no racial permeations meant. The problem is, I know it's going to happen when the game's released. People are going to go ahead and try to drag it into it because people, sadly, I think some people, not people, some people, I believe, really enjoy for lack of a better word, an argument. They enjoy oh, what's the word I'm trying to find here? They want a cause. RPG Grandma says you play with who is available to play with. And that's a very important thing to note about gaming in the 70s and into the 80s. We didn't have the technology of today. I can go right now and I can set up a game online using StreamYard right now, and I can get 3 or 4 players fairly easy, I bet, maybe game for a couple hours every Friday night. Back then you didn't. Back then you really wanted players. You didn't care if they were male, female, black, white, Asian, Hispanic. You didn't care if they were liberal or conservative. You didn't care who their mom and dad was. You wanted a game. And you just wanted to sit there and have fun. Bingo. Exactly. RPG Grandma says, but everyone I know that played forever ago never cared about race, gender, or creed, only that you were a decent human. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like, we had rules at our table. Like there's kind of like a standing rule, and the standing rule was it didn't matter about the politics at school. Like, I'll give you an example. In my gaming group, when I was probably about 14, 13, one of the people that was in our gaming group was one of the kids who played heavy into sports. And he would not give us the time of day in school because he was a quote unquote jock. But Friday nights, man, he came over. It was either at my house or someone else's house, and he played D&D, and he was actually a really cool kid. He was just a jerk at school because he was a jock and didn't like, he couldn't like nerds. He couldn't like us nerds in school. So he was a jerk to us in school. He never picked on us, but he was a jerk. But at the gaming table, he was really cool, and we didn't care. You know what I mean? Hey, game with us, man. It was actually kind of funny to watch him act that way at school, and we kind of had the power. We could have outed him any time. Artworks are understood to be pig people. Yeah, and that's the whole point about this is, gaming is supposed to be about your imagination. And your imagination is supposed to be able to run free. Yes, you can go too far. Yes, you can. You can bring race into it. You can bring religion into it. You can bring things that you should not be bringing to the table into it. But as a player, or as a or let me back up, as a DM, if you have people attempting to bring outside politics into it or social issues into it, you stop it, or you don't invite that player again. They're being disruptive. Or if you're in a group of players and you have someone come in new, or the DM, remember, as the players, you really you're the one who have the power over the DM, because without you, the DM doesn't have a game. Always a player can always run the game. A player can always pick up and be a DM. But if you're a type of person who you love to be the DM, it's like I made a post the other day on Facebook about DMs who are tyrants. You don't got to play with them. Boot them off the table. I have been privy to a couple of times where players have went, you're out of here. You're not welcome anymore. I got to drive now listening. Okay, RPG Grandma, stay safe. So, RPG Grandma makes a couple good points here. So does Thyatis. Is, we as a gaming community, the power on whether or not we allow racism and bigotry into our gaming is in our own hands. We don't have to, it's sort of like online. You ever have that one guy or one woman online who goes ahead and they're just a jerk, and they're being a jerk on purpose, and they're being a jerk on purpose. Well, they're doing it, like they'll make a post. That post is clickbait. They're doing it, they've made it, and they're sitting back, rubbing their hands together, just happy that they went ahead and posted it because they know there's going to be a shitstorm underneath it. The best way of handling that is don't post. Starve the troll, as they say, and the troll will die and go away. You know, and we kind of had that same mentality in the 80s. Is the rare time that we had a jerk come in, it didn't last long. The jerk did not last long at all. Now, was anyone who gamed, who's watching this right now, did anyone game during the 70s and 80s? Did you ever run into any issues with racism or bigotry or anything like that? If so, drop a comment. And for those of you watching real quick, I don't know if you saw this earlier, but I'll be doing a giveaway tonight, and I'm going to be giving away a AD&D Dragonlance Adventures hardcover. Really good quality. It is nice and clean. So here pretty soon, I'll be giving that away out of my subscribers. So stay tuned, see if you win it. Also, I'm going to give one last chance. I'm going to reach out to him personally, but week before last winter has not claimed his dice bag and dice yet. So I'll reach out to you again to try to see if you can want to pick up your dice bag or have me deliver your dice bag and dice. RPG Grandma, no. Yeah, that's a no to racism and bigotry. Like I said, I'm not saying that there was no racism. I'm not saying there was no bigotry involved in any of this. That's by far not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that, you know, as someone who's been playing since 1977, I witnessed it rarely. I mean, I can't even probably count, honestly, on maybe 3 fingers, 3 incidents that involved open racism or bigotry. In fact, one of them wasn't even a table I was at. It was at a game shop because a guy wore some type of t-shirt. I forget what it was. It was some shirt. I think it was really, really grossly political. This was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. So it wasn't even in the 70s and 80s. It was in the 2000s, late 2000s. But, I think what a lot of people misconstrue is people misconstrue how it was back then because they weren't around back then. And again, I'm going to call Twitter out, or X, wherever it's called this week, is, we only post videos anymore on it because it's just a sewer, just a big sewer over on Twitter, I think. You can't post nothing without people sitting there taking offense to it. If you make if you say that my game has, dark magic in it, you're going to get some 3 or 4 people posting underneath it going, oh, why are you being racist or something like that. It's like, I'm not being racist, and that's another thing, when we're talking about terms in gaming, again, going back to Darlene's post, Darlene, the artist post a few days ago, she had to make a post where she said basically, she can't put the term, I think it was black mage or black sorcerer or something like that. She couldn't use that term because it was problematic. And I'm sad to see that, because when you give in to people like that, I think you're making a mistake as a game designer. You don't want to offend people naturally, but no matter what, you're going to offend people, because there's always going to be somebody to tear your work apart. And they use racism these days and other issues to validate it because it's a big flashpoint. Gunther the Man says, my gaming group in the 80s is admittedly small, but we never had those problems. Exactly. And Titus says, remember when you were at the game store and you were more concerned about the lack of deodorant than political rhetoric? I miss those days. Yeah, exactly. You're like wishing you could go and grab somebody some roll-on deodorant or spray-on deodorant. Titus makes a joke about it, but that was really actually true. You're in a game shop and you're packed in there, and sadly there's always one guy in there that could use a shower, but so Titus, he's not stretching the truth much on that one. But I think racism in gaming, I believe racism in gaming actually is a more modern concept than it was back in the late 70s and early 80s. So is social, for lack of a better word, how would I put this? Social biases, social bigotry, political bigotry. I know people who will not game with others if they are a Trump voter or a Biden voter. And I think that's really sad. I saw a person post for an online game. This is before Christmas. He posted on, or it was a she posted for an online D&D game that she was looking for, and she specifically said that I'm not looking for, and I'm not going to say the party, but she basically said that I'm not looking for a certain political party voter. Now, when I saw that, I just thought to myself how sad that was, because she's missing out. Because even if half the group was of that political leaning, I bet you during the game I'd never come out. And again, the power is in the players and the power is in the DM. If you happen to have that type of player come in and they are a racist or they are a bigot, if you're online and you're on an online game, then the DM can be very simple and make it very easy, and that is they can boot them. And sadly, in gaming groups, mainly D&D gaming groups, I see this a lot, and I see that it's almost like group admins are so paranoid that they're going to, they think that their group's self-worth is on member count. So they put up with the racist and the obvious racist and bigots coming out, and they don't do nothing about it. What they do is they allow them to come in and infect these groups. And I think what ends up happening is these admins cheat themselves because they lose more people than they keep. They'll keep one racist or bigot or a group of them because they don't want to take their group count down, because again, their egos ride upon how many members are in their group. And by the way, I'm not attacking all admins. I admin a writing group, and I have very specific, strict rules, and I enforce the shit out of them. And I probably decline 30 people a week joining my group, and I probably boot 2 or 3 a week out of my group for being mass violators or if they post racist or bigoted content. Because a lot of group admins who run D&D groups, I believe, this is strictly Don's opinion, but I think that a lot of D&D groups could use a culling. They really could. And frankly, I think some of the admins should be culled too, because of the way they are. Because I think that when you allow, and again, this goes right against, I'll give you an example. I was sitting back with Jim Wampler and Tim Kask on Tim's back porch last early fall, or late summer, excuse me. And I was sitting on the back porch, and we were all just sitting there talking, me, Jim, and Tim. And Tim was kind of telling the story about the early days of TSR hobbies, with Gary Gygax. And he was talking about how back then, they didn't have any discussions about blacks or anything like that, or Mexicans or women. What it was they in fact had the opposite idea. The whole idea behind D&D is to bring groups together. That's why you could create your own character. That's why there's, if you notice, even in the OSE or the really like the white box or whatnot, they talk about a human. They don't talk about a white human. They don't talk about in fact, as a matter of fact, when you take a look at the original D&D manuscript, and I want to grab this. It was shared with me. Let me take a look. I apologize for doing this, but I think that this is important that I show you this. Well, wait, I'm not going to be able to pull it up, damn it. When the Dave Arneson estate, post Dave Arneson's death, there was a legal battle, I believe, in 1979 over the D&D, TSR, and all of that. And a manuscript, a PDF manuscript, was presented as an exhibit. In fact, it was shared with me today by a friend of mine, a copy of it. And it was really fascinating because it's a typed out manuscript, and it says like Exhibit 13 on it and all that, because it was part of their court case, the famous Arneson case for TSR and D&D. And what's really interesting is the last page, there's a warrior drawn, hand-drawn warrior, really rough, but it was the classic art back then, It was a woman, female warrior. It wasn't just, white male. It was a female warrior. A major part of the game, I'm just, and that's exactly the way I am. I don't join groups to fight with people. I join groups because I want to network. I want to meet other gamers. Hopefully I meet some gamers local. We can get a local in-person game going. I've had some health challenges over the last 4 or 5, 6 months. So, I'm on some pretty stringent medication. So I was hoping to get an online game going right before Christmas, and that didn't happen due to some health issues I have. And, I hope to get an online game going. I would love to have a Friday night game, like starting like at 9 o'clock in the evening, going till about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2-3 hour D&D game online with people I meet online. But it's hard because, there's so many good people out there, but they're drowned out by a lot of the negative people because admins do not enforce the rules of their page. There's a famous group out there now that actually created another specialized page that's titled, it's silly. You can tell what their content is mainly going to be, and that is it's something like the anti-woke, anti-liberal AD&D old persons group or some BS like that. I got an invite to it, and I was like, flush the toilet on it. No, thank you. So, tell you what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and give away a Dragonlance Adventures first edition AD&D book, shall we? Hardcover. I'm doing these every week. I'm doing this next week. If you tune into my video, I'm going to be giving away a deities and demigods with the Cthulhu mythos in it. So next Tuesday, 8 o'clock, you want to be here for that, because you possibly could win fairly in-demand book. And the interior, the cover's a little rough, I'll give it that, but the interior is nice and clean. Cthulhu mythos, deities and demigods. But for tonight, we're going to give away a Dragonlance Adventures. Good quality book too. Nice and clean inside. Let me set this up. My apologies. I am needing to do this little thing. It goes to all the people who follow. It's not based on commenters. It's based on followers. And I've had a huge boost in subscribers in the last 6 weeks. So let me do this. Let me set it up. One moment. And I am going to draw a name. Guys ready? And let's do this. It's cycling right now. Who's going to be? Come on, hurry up. Sorry, it's taking. Thyatis. Sorry, I'm going to butcher your last name, but it's Thyatis Asha. Thyatis. Hey, let me find you. Hold on a minute. You won. Sorry about that. So congratulations. You won an AD&D Dragonlance Adventures. Do me a favor. Go on Facebook and drop me a PM on Facebook, or you can go, or tell you what, better yet, Thyatis, email me at info@wizardtowergames.com. Again, info@wizardtowergames.com. Drop me your address. I will put it in the mail to you tomorrow. Congratulations. Appreciate it. Yeah, drop me a PM. That's fine too. RPG Grandma says, yes, people need to use their imagination to create their worlds and vibe instead of being negative all the time. I agree with you 100%. And RPG Grandma, I think the majority of people are like that. The problem with being online is that one person can really create havoc in a group. Because one person can create multiple accounts. Not that we don't know a North Carolina infection that has done that. And they create multiple accounts, and then what they do is they will go in and they'll comment on their own threads. And it looks like, and it's really weird because sometimes you can tell, because it'll be like the same 2 or 3 people kind of feeding off each other. And you're like, they type alike, and they do the same, misspellings, and they do the same errors. In punctuation and such. So you can sometimes tell it, but they'll do that. Just got your PM. So good deal. Yeah, make sure you give me your full address. I'll send it out to you tomorrow, and I'll drop you a tracker. So congratulations. But the thing is, they be cowards. That's exactly what they are. But I think what's even worse is and I put it all on the admins, because 99% of the groups I'm a member of, they have usually the same rule written one of two ways. It'll either say, it'll either say no bullying, or be kind to others, blah blah blah. And it's just like they don't care about their own rules, but they do care when it's someone they don't like, or they do care when they're called out. I have been booted from several groups because I openly call an admin out, and they'll block me and remove me from the group. Like, how dare I speak against them? Well, guess what? There's about 20,000 AD&D groups on Facebook. I can join whatever group I want. Boot me, I don't give a shit. RPG Grandma says the multi-account anonymous types. That's exactly what they are. And usually those people do that because they know they're just being jerks. So what they do is they just sit there and they need somebody. So since nobody right off the bat will agree with them, they will create one or two alt accounts. There's certain groups in there that I believe have a lot of alt accounts. But yeah, it's just a real shame. I think the whole thing with gaming is and this is kind of like my vibe with it is, come on over. We'll sit down, we'll game. I'll even make a pot of chili. Care? Hell, I'll supply the chili and the frickin' beer in the fridge, or iced tea if you like it. It doesn't hurt my feelings any. Yeah, you want to bring some snacks? Bring some snacks too. If you don't want to, don't want to. You're coming to my house. I'm your host. You're welcome in my home. I'm welcoming you to my home, my table. So I'll be happy to feed you and provide you drinks, and we will play D&D. Just don't be a jerk. And by the way, I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what church you go to. If you go to church, I don't care who you worship. Because I know a lot of liberals who are jerks. I know a lot of conservatives that are jerks. I know a lot of Christians and Buddhists that are jerks. Being a jerk is not religious based nor political based, by and large. I think what it is just, I think you get a lot out of how you are to other people. And I think if you can be hardcore, and I see this a lot in the older groups. RPG Grandma says a lack of integrity and fortitude to own their stupid moments and forgive others. Exactly. Tom, thank you for tuning in and coming to my video. I resemble that remark. Yeah, you're easy to get along with, man. We me and you've had many video and online chats and such. You don't resemble that remark, man, my friend. Don't worry about it. But that's the whole thing, it's sit down, let's game, let's have a good time. And again, the whole purpose of gaming is to suspend for a while the day. Live in a time where you can be anything that you want. You can be anything that you want. We're playing a game where you can cast spells and ride magic carpets and delve into dungeons and battle orcs. What do you care if the orcs look like pigs or not? What do you care if the drow are dark skinned or not? What do you care if it's called black magic or evil magic? It's, as long as the person is not obviously trying to be racist or bigoted, don't make it racist or bigoted. And that's something that a lot of people on Twitter could, I think, learn. They could really learn that part of it. And that's the problem with Twitter, is I think Twitter is a microcosm for a lot of issues. Tom says the only orc is a pig-faced orc. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier, Tom. Just like the kobold, dog-faced, the long pulled out snout. That's a kobold to me. Always will be. Like Tom, I was saying earlier, I was talking about, like in my game, like in my world, the difference between a male and a female orc is the male orc has large tusks, the female does not. It's not an attack on walruses. You know what I mean? It's just fantasy, ladies and gentlemen. Thydus says amen. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's can I make my game racist and bigoted? Absolutely. Can I use my gaming to attack African Americans? Absolutely, I can do that. Can I do it to attack Jews or Christians or Mexicans? Absolutely, I can do that. But why would I want to? Not only is it morally, ethically wrong, not only will I be a total shitbag if I did it, but what does something like that do to your game? How does that affect your game? How does it make your game better? And that's the reason why you largely don't see it in gaming, because most gamers, 99% of gamers, and I'm going to use that term, 99% of gamers don't care. And for those out there that are a little vocal about it and they do care, no they don't. No they don't. They talk a good game online, but face to face, I guarantee you they're not. Now, if you get kicked out of every Zoom game or in-person table and your go-to is bigotry, the truth, you are probably behaving badly, not hundreds of... Yes, exactly. And see, that's what I was talking about earlier, RPG Grandma, is, the nice thing about online gaming especially is the person running the game has the power. So if I'm running a game and everyone in this chat's in my game, if someone's going to come in and be a racist or a bigot, it's very easy. I can just remove them. But why? Tom, can you, maybe I'm missing something. Can you clarify that question to me? But why? Was it something I said or something someone else said? Clarify it in comments to me, please, so I can go ahead and address it. Yep, why? Again, I apologize. I'll just be blunt and honest, everybody. I'm on chemotherapy medication, so I'm sometimes a little befuddled in the last few weeks, so my apologies. Why would you? That's exactly it, and that's my whole point. And that's why when I was talking about online gaming groups or online game groups on Facebook, the admins need to do a call. They need to go into their members and they need to go take the racists and bigots and they need to go ahead and cut them out. But Tom, I don't think they will, and the reason why they don't do it is because they want to keep membership. Because when you look at most admins in these groups, I think, or let me back up. When you look at some admins, I'll put it that way, because I know a lot of good admins in D&D groups. John Scott's one in the D&D group. He's a really good guy. When you look at some admins, I think they get their worth out of their member count. It's kind of like a little ego boost. Woohoo, I hit 5,000 members, that type of thing. RPG Grandma says, why be racist? What's the point? That's exactly it. What's the point? And you'll never have somebody come into a chat like this and talk about it because they know better. But I would love to have one of these idiots come in here and tell me how being a racist or a bigot improves your game in the least bit. Like last night, again, I was talking to Cindy Robertson, and me and Cindy was talking on Zoom. It was like, past midnight my time. And I was helping her on with getting her Zoom call up and running. And you know what? I only talked to Cindy Robertson online. And it was really cool sitting down with her and face to face and actually being able to physically talk with her. And she's just a really nice woman. And she'd be someone really cool to game with. And, what's the big deal? What would be wrong with having her in the tables? And Cindy will, Cindy's openly, she's a trans woman. What's the big deal? Come on, let's game. It's role playing. It's about being something else. It's about suspending imagination for a few hours and having fun, and for once in your life not caring who someone voted for or what church they go into or what their political belief based structure is. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, everybody in this chat right now, everybody watching this video, if we all sat down and we were honest, okay, and we filled out a form that said, do you believe in this? Do you not believe in that? Do you believe, you know what? Everybody has innate biases. We do. It's just a fact of life. It's how you use your biases. Do you use it openly to hurt people, or do you just say, you know what, I have my belief and I have the ability to respect others, or are you like a lot of people online who for some reason can't keep their mouth shut and they use it as a bully pulpit. You know, it's all what you want to pull out of it. Like I said, you know, I've been gaming since '77, so been gaming for 46 years now. In fact, this Christmas will be 46 years. Been gaming, and I played D&D fairly regularly up through about 85, and then I went in the military and had a few years suspension of D&D, and then right after that got right back into it when I got to normal duty station and all that, and got right back into D&D and played D&D and all of that. Tammy Veralt, hey, how you doing, Tammy? Sorry joining late. There's a danger in working from home. No worries. You are always welcome here, Tammy. Don't worry about it. No problem at all. Tina, I think right now is doing something with report cards or something right now anyways, myself. So she's in the kitchen at the laptop. Teacher life, right? So, you know, so I have been regularly playing probably 36 years, say 36 to 40 years regularly, and being a game designer and owning a game publishing company and also owning a book publishing company years ago. I didn't witness much racism and bigotry. I really didn't. I didn't see hardly any politics at tables. I mean, the funny politics that was at our one table again was like I tell a story of is, you know, having the jock at the table. It was hilarious because you talk about a guy who was a geek to his core, but at high school he was all Mr. You know, football and rugby and, you know, Mr. Tough Guy and everything, and boy did he, you know, do me a favor, guys, you know, I can play with you, but you know, don't he used to excuse his parents. My mom and dad find out I'm coming here, you know, you can't tell the school or anybody at school. No, he didn't want his fellow players to know that he sat down on Friday nights for 4 hours and gamed with us until 1 o'clock in the morning at my house. But those are little funny things. RPG Grandma says, the only time I did an edgy theme was because the players had wiped out a town of humans and they were not human. This required consequences. The survivors of the massacre described them and Well, the thing is that's just it. That's about gaming, though. I mean, you know what? In gaming, you know, again, players die, bad things happen. Yes, I have DM games where part of the game is you come across a town that has been destroyed by goblins, and you find a child who has survived, and you know, you can wrap it all around that. You know, or you find a woman with a young child that survived, you know, the glimmer of hope, and you go to avenge on the goblin. You know, where's the goblins at? Well, they're in the hills over there, you know, the old castle that's ruined. They're in the caverns in the basement of that, and you and your group decide to go there and avenge this town type thing. You know, it is the premise of D&D, and that's why, you know, I get into the whole thing also, and I'll be probably discussing about death and dying in D&D probably next weekend, is people who don't think dying is part of D&D. Yes, it is. Terry R, thanks for tuning in to the channel. Terry says, I got started with AD&D in August 1981 while stationed at Fort Hood. Oh yeah, Fort Hood. August of 81. Oh yes. See, you're prime pickings, man. You're right at that prime time when wasn't D&D a cool time in the early 80s? I mean, Dungeons and Dragons, man, wasn't that just such a cool time? They were always putting something new out. All the time you're going to the Walden Books or to the bookstore looking for a new module or something. RPG Grandma says Kingdom population went anti-pointed ears as a result. Yeah, but the thing is, that would be realistic about it. You know, if a village was killed by, let's say, a roving band of evil elves, they would, you know, most likely the survivors would be anti-elf. You know, that's like with backstories. You know, I allow characters to have brief backstories. Just give me a paragraph. Just give me kind of an overview. And you know, I'll be honest with you. Like one of my backstories is one of my humans hate it's kobolds and goblins they hate. Why do they hate kobolds and goblins? But because my cleric, my human cleric, came from a town that was ravaged and pretty much obliterated, and his parents both were killed by a band of roving kobolds and goblins. And that's part of my backstory. Sorry for the fans, but guess what? I think that those are cool, interesting backstories because the DM can then use that against the player and to his own advantage and try to make the story more interesting. Tammy Veralt says, teacher life is the best. I think it's so much easier to be hateful and teacher life is the best. I think that it's so much easier to be hateful and negative while online when I have to give corrective feedback or address big issues with staff face-to-face only. Yes. And that's the thing with my wife. And Tammy's a friend of my wife online, and Tammy will probably tell you something about my wife, and I'll just let you know about Tina, my wife. My wife is a teacher, and you'll see that when you're online, a friend of my wife posts very rarely online and on social media. She only has Facebook, and she usually will post about gnomes because she loves gnomes, and she'll post about her quilt making and, you know, food pictures and food recipes and things like that, because my wife is very, very non-political, and my wife does not want to get into any arguments online with anybody over politics. She's a teacher. She loves her kids, loves her coworkers, loves her employer, and she just doesn't want to get into the politics online, and I don't blame her. RPG Grandma says, and then a secret cabal was revealed for them to have to fight, but they knew they had caused all the vigilante violence by cloning. See, this is the thing. RPG Grandma, you're nailing it right now, because this is the cool thing when you run a D&D game. You can warp it and twist it any way that you want, and you can make it layer upon layer of juicy, flavorful, just really intricate plot, and you can really just suck your players right on in and just bring them into all that wonderfulness. I akin a good DM as a good steak. You know, just the more they get into the adventure, just the more better and juicier it becomes. You know, more tasteful it becomes, because a good DM takes your players, you take your players and you manipulate their PC's biases and needs against them or for them. And also, you learn your players. You learn some players you may have a table of players that really, after a while playing with them, you get the idea that, you know what, they don't like these big, long campaigns. They want it quick and simple. They want to be able to finish something within 1 or 2 or 3 game sessions. Or maybe you have a group who really likes dungeon delving. I'm a dungeon delver. I love deep, nasty, vicious, evil, vile dungeons as a player. I just love them. I'm not a big wilderness wandering around type of, but a good DM reads his players, learns his players, and goes ahead and manipulates that. Tabletop Tapper says, 1980 at Plattsburgh Air Force Base. Got my Moldov basic box set for Christmas. That was me. And the thing is I got mine in 77. Christmas of 77. By mistake, my mom thought it was an art coloring box set, and she bought it for me. And I opened it up, and I was disappointed. I admit, I opened it up, I was like, what's this? It's got some dice. It's got a crayon. What's a book? Gave it to my buddy, and my buddy came back from school a couple days later. He's like, dude, you got to play this game, what you gave me. I'm like, what is it? Dude, you can be a wizard. You know, you can be a fighter, a cleric. What's a cleric? You can cast spells and heal people. What? Oh man, that was it. I was mainline in D&D from that time on. Number one of consequence. Welcome to the page. Says the now classic adventure modules were coming out at that time. That's exactly what it was. It was like the late 70s, early to mid 80s was like the best time to be gaming with D&D, because it was just like every time you turned around, they were coming out with a new module. They were coming out with a new product. And it was like you were just being brought in. And like Tom from Tabletop Tavern, he talks about Molde Basic, box set. You're just like people were cutting their teeth on Beckme. You were used to this real basic way of playing D&D, and then Advanced Dungeons and Dragons came out. It's like, whoa, AD&D, and then all the ancillary book products and everything that come out. Like you can tell, like right here, I've got my entire AD&D set, all the books, and I love them. I'm never going to get rid of them. They're stick me in the crematorium and throw my books in with me. You know what I mean? But that's exactly what this is all about. It was such a wonderful time to game. And number one of consequence, got a question for you. Early gaming. You were a gamer, obviously. did you run into any racism or bigotry at your tables, or did your group really not care who came as long as you guys want to play and have fun? Another old school gamer, we'll call him. RPG Grandma says a good dose of guilt and hassle to drive home, wiping out peasant villages, bad PCs. That's exactly it. What you're doing is you're taking the situation, you're using your cunning and you're using your creativity, and you're making it fun for your players, but you're also making it challenging for your players. And I always tell people, because I've seen this on Twitter quite a bit about, well, I don't want to play AD&D because my character can die. That's the whole part about it. If there's not going to be consequences for your actions, then why are you playing D&D? If you're going to play a game that you never die in, you might just play a flipping board game, and the thing is that's the whole point about D&D is the lethality of it. It's you have to think before moving. You have to think before acting, because rash actions, doing things without thinking it through, can hurt your character or it can hurt your party. Like the proverbial, you are in a 20-foot by 20-foot room, the door opens and there's 4 goblins, and the magic user goes, cast fireball. Has anyone ever had that happen? RPG Grandma says, LOL, original D&D still fun as heck. Yep. As a matter of fact, I once in a great while sit down, I want to play a little bit of Back Me. It's just nice to get back to just simple. In fact, I normally don't even play Back Me past the red box. It's just something real quick, clean. Maybe just player or two don't show up. Pull it out. Let's play some quick fun stuff. Number one consequence. When I was at college in '83, I ran an open table in the dorm lounge and never turned anyone away. Exactly. Again, another player from the early '80s, and I have yet to see anybody. Yeah, we didn't want Mexicans or women or blacks or whatnot, and we all saw the photos I showed earlier today. The gaming groups of the early 80s and late 70s. Lots of women and minorities in those gaming groups. RPG Grandma says they had fun and learned not to go murder hobo. Yep, you taught them a lesson. Good DM. Local 433 Gumby. Hello, don't worry you're late, you're here. Says Bomb late. Greets. Oh, by the way, you may get hurt is why I started paintball back in '91. Exactly, paintball. God, I didn't play paintball in years. Number one consequence, same thing later. I was in the army in Germany, ran a game in the barracks, never turned anyone away. That's exactly it. And the military in the 80s was heavily set with minorities and women. It was. So still is, but to quote myself, you little paper person will die. Yeah, that's the thing though, man. That's what people don't realize is people don't realize that, I'll be honest with you, with me, once my player starts to get about 9th level, frankly, I don't care if they die. I'm kind of the opposite. I really don't like playing high level characters. I love the sweet spot for me between about 3rd, 4th level and about 7th, 8th level. That right there, conservatively, between 3rd and 7th level for me is my sweet spot for a player character. You're starting to get a little bit more powerful, but you're not quite. And when you start getting about 5th and 6th level, you're getting your feet underneath you. You're being able to do stuff, and it just seems more realistic. Once I hit about 9th level, especially once I hit 10th level, I'll be honest with you, I don't care. I've been known to actually just simply say, you know what, I want to start a new character, just because I just don't like those high level character games. I really don't. Local 433 Gumby says never had a character get above 4th. Now, is that as a DM you never had a character get above 4th, or as a player you never got above 4th? So, but yeah, I mean, that's part of the game. And again, I think this video, I hope we get a few more people watching it, because this video is indicative of what gaming was truly like in the 80s. And we've already hit an hour now, so I keep my videos to about an hour, my lives to about an hour. So again, this video I think really exemplifies by the comments that people, if you read them, that gaming was very inclusive in the 70s and 80s, to women and minorities in particular. Um, we've had at least a dozen people commenting in the chat here that played and or began to play in that era, and we all have confirmed that. And I just want to real quickly, if you do not mind, real quickly just go through and show you this real quick. You get, let me pull this up. Let me do this. Oh, it's not going to do it now. It's being a bad machine. Well, my apologies. Well, this was one of the images that I showed, and this was of a gaming group in Dungeons and Dragons, based on the clothing. That's about 1983 to 85, I'm gonna guess, and it's indicative of what gaming was like back then. Local 4-3 never had a character get above 4th. He says, player side, death was always a spectacle. Yeah, I've been in games like that. RPG Grandma says, well, that's just it. Either people get bored with a PC or game genre in addition to rule changes, so die from neglect or on a shelf, or maybe the table game death, but DMs, NPCs die all the time. Exactly. And that's the thing is, as a player, I went ahead and a lot of times the Van Halen shirt, yep. As a player, everyone's people die, even the DM's favorite ones. Yes. So the thing is with me is I think that this video has really starkly shown that, gaming was inclusive. We didn't care. And for those of you who really think that, early gaming in the late 70s to early mid 80s was just a bunch of racist, bigoted white guys running around playing D&D and hating everybody who was not white and male, you're really short-sighting. You're being short-sighted, and you're really cheating yourself out of understanding the roots of the game that you love, and the people like us who were there, who played it very early on and continue to play it. If it was a racist and a bigoted game, I wouldn't be playing it today. I probably would have been turned off from the game a long time ago, because I'm just not into that vibe. I'm just not into the whole, I'm not in it for the drama. I'm not in it for arguing and fighting with people. What I want to do is I want to enjoy the game. I want to enjoy the hobby. So we've been at 1 hour, everybody. Everybody who's commented, thank you very much. Thietis, congratulations for winning the Greyhawk Adventure AD&D first edition book. Like I said, I will get that out to you tomorrow. For those of you who have not subscribed, please click the subscribe button down below. You help the channel. Help me grow my channel, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. So this is Down at Wizard Tower Games signing off my live tonight. I hope everybody has a good night, have a safe week, and for those of you who might be interested, I am thinking about, now that I'm kind of acclimating to my meds, I am thinking about doing a weekly game online. And if you're interested in it, drop me a PM or something. Good night. See you later. And I will talk to everybody later. And I'll be doing a video here probably the next day or two. I'm going to talk about the online game and give people a chance to sign up. So it's Down at Wizard Tower Games. Thank you again for tuning into my video. Please hit that subscribe button. Your commenting on my videos and inputting on my videos is a lot of fun, and I appreciate it. I really do. So good night, everybody.